Hey everyone, welcome to Roundball Stew. I am Matt Stroup here with Steve Alexander, and today we're going to be catching up on some of the latest offseason news, including some key injury updates and Summer League subplots. But first, we have a special guest joining us right now from NBC Sports Philadelphia. It's the co-host of the Sixers Talk podcast, Danny Pommels. Danny, thanks for being here, man. You've done so many videos for some of our preview shows, etc. We finally have you here in person. This is excellent.
I am ready for some round ball stew. Let's go. Yeah.
Awesome.
Danny, how's the off season treating you? Do you love it as much as I do?
I do love the off season. It's so crazy how intriguing the NBA is year round. I feel like the NFL, Major League Baseball, like during the season, things kind of, die down. The games are being played, but there's always so much drama year round with the NBA, and it just seems like the Sixers have some type of connection to so many different things, particularly with this whole Ben Simmons thing that still is playing out in some ways. So I do love it. Absolutely, Steve.
He's music to Steve's ears right there. You just brought up Ben Simmons. I think that's one of Steve's favorite ongoing subplots.
How crazy is that?
Literally my favorite thing to talk about is Ben Simmons. So now he's not in Philly anymore, right?
Right, yeah. But this dude suddenly makes an appearance during the Nets Sixers Summer League game and decides to sit on the bench, just stirring up all of the innuendo and the conjecture and everything.
Man, the other day we were talking about Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and all that drama, and we had like a eureka moment, like, wait a second, Ben Simmons is still on this team too, like on the Nets. It's so crazy how much turmoil could there be on one team. It's nuts.
And it really, and you add it all together, and there was so much criticism and differing opinions on the Harden trade and who made out and things like that. But it just seems like such a no-brainer for the Sixers to have done that trade now with Simmons still having not played the game. So,
yeah. But real quick, we didn't actually even plan to talk about Ben Simmons today, but now we're doing it. Like, what do you think? Do you think this guy's going to come back and look like himself? Like, if you had to look in the crystal ball, we haven't seen him play in so long. What's your prediction? What's your expectation?
Well, I think, if you really want me to get on my Ben Simmons soapbox, it's weird because in some ways, bro, you kind of want to be the guy. Like, he has all this money. He has this beautiful fiance. He's living on different coasts. He's from Australia. There's so much about him that makes him like this worldly guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, everyone wants to have all these connections, and he's got the fits and the clothing and dating all these beautiful women and famous people. But then, on the flip side, I think the thing with him is that he's gotten by so much on just his pure talent. So is he going to come back? I think he can be that guy that we saw distributing the basketball, setting people up, rebounding, playing defense. I think those are all his God-given talents. Where the rub comes in with him is that when you ask him to extend beyond what he's good at, you want him to try to work on the things that he's not great at, like jump shots, three-point shots, things like those are the things you want him to do to kind of be better. And he's not comfortable extending out of that complacency. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the rub with him is that, yes, I feel like he'll come back and be similar to what we saw previously, but will he be better than he was? That's the great unknown.
You forgot to mention free throw shooting.
Absolutely.
Something he needs to work on. Also, like as far as him dishing to his teammates, if Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving both go, who is he going to be dishing to? Bruce Brown?
But how about
Bruce Brown's gone?
How low will the expectations be then? Like for a guy like him who's trying to, maybe fly under the radar in some instances, the expectations will be so low. So he can go out there and play carefree and just be, who he wants to be.
Yeah, weirdly, that would almost, I don't know, would that be a best case scenario for him? That's fascinating to think about as he tries to kind of return to the NBA, re-enter
in a market
the
like
NBA.
Brooklyn. Right?
Yeah. All right, well, we're here to talk to you about some of the storylines around the Sixers team as we look ahead to next year. So let's start with James Harden, reportedly taking a pay cut while negotiating a new, I believe, 2-year contract. Glowing reports about his offseason work habits for whatever that's worth. So, Danny, looking ahead to this upcoming season, should we expect more from Harden than what we saw last season while he was with Philly? Or do you think we should really expect more of the same in terms of, lower scoring, good assist numbers, just not quite the Houston Harden that we got used to?
Yeah, it's tough because he was so prolific, right, in Houston, just like a huge draw, MVP type of player, scoring champ. And I feel like he's working to become that again. But Father Time is undefeated, as they say. So I think what we saw last season definitely were issues from the hamstring. He was a little banged up there. Credit to the Sixers medical staff for kind of bringing that along and helping him, heal a bit better. Like think about it, Matt. We saw James Harden running the stairs in the stadium after games, bro. Like how many athletes do you see doing that? Roy Halladay is like somebody who comes to mind of doing that. But he's running the stairs in the stadium. Like the fans aren't even completely dispersed yet. He's running the stairs in the stadium trying to get this hamstring better. So I definitely feel like injury was an issue. But, give him credit. He was still near 10 assists a game, which is kind of uncanny to think of a guy who shoots as much as he did in his prime. You know what I'm saying? So I think it'll probably be a combination of both, but it is such a grind to get through that 82-game season. I think the NBA is seeing that and trying to, lessen the burden some on the players with this in-season tournament and kind of cutting back on, some of these low management days and things like that. So I think, like you said, you've seen the workouts, you've seen him with Sam Cassell and Tyrese Maxey, you've seen him doing hills and whatnot and all that. I think he's working back to be more of that scorer. I can't forget this funny line that Jalen Rose used last year about Harden, his shooting performances being like concert dates, like 3-11, 4-12, 5-13. You know what I'm saying? Like he's like shooting concert dates. You know
That's
what I'm saying?
hilarious.
So I think that will improve, and that's what they need, the efficiency. And they trade Simmons for a guy like Harden, and he is having trouble scoring in the fourth quarter. He's having trouble putting up shots, which was a big knock on Ben Simmons melting down the stretch. So that's got to improve. So maybe he's not shooting at the clip of, Houston Harden, but he's got to be more efficient. And if he's going to distribute, he's a point guard at this point. So he's a point guard. He's the team's point guard. And if he's going to have crazy assist numbers like that, and be close to 20 points a game, that's you totally will take that from almost any player, but it's got to be more efficient. You can't have those, 2 for 12 games,
right.
3 for 11 games. And the free throws obviously are a big plus, with him and Embiid together dominating the free throw line, the charity stripe like they do and getting to the line as often as they do. That's a big plus for the Sixers.
Well, his inability to stay healthy the last couple of years and his age combined together, there were times last year during the regular season where I was like, is James Harden washed? Like is Father Time ruining him right before our eyes? And I kind of feel like if he can stay healthy and come into the season completely healthy, that he should be able to return to form, I would think. And you kind of think back to Houston when he was trying to play his way out of Houston, and he kind of came in. Didn't look like he was in very good shape. The
fat suit? You mean the fat suit, Steve?
The fat suit.
The infamous fat suit. It's weird because the bar is so high, right? This guy was such – I remember one time against the Sixers in South Philly, he had like a 50-point triple-double. Come on. Like how can you reclaim that type of form? And I agree with you. He looked a step slow. He looked a bit, out of sorts, but – this guy's on the top 75, NBA's all-time top 75 list for a reason, because there's more to his game than just the scoring. You know what I'm saying? And if I could just be frank with you guys for a minute, Sixers fans, just to give you the perspective a bit and the expectations and things like that, they're in a bit of a quandary because this is an organization that hasn't gotten past the second round of the playoffs into the Eastern Conference Finals just once in the past 37 years. But the expectation among the fans is that they want to have their team competing for a championship, being in the conversation of the Bucks, the Heat, the Celtics type of teams, but they just haven't been that good enough. So it's a little bit of wanting your team to be great, them not meeting the expectations, and then that kind of just really just dulls the regular season because so many people are waiting to get to the playoffs to see how they perform. Can they get over the hump? Can they be in the NBA Finals, Eastern Conference Finals? So the fans add to that pressure and expectation that Harden should have coming into the next season.
Yeah, and there's also kind of this, like, you know, under the surface, this ticking Embiid clock, right? Like everyone,
I mean, absolutely,
a relatively young guy still, but in terms of like mileage on his knees, maybe not as young as.
Yeah, this huge human that has all this mileage, right?
Yeah. By the way, Harden, it does just kind of feel like he's moving into kind of another phase of his career, and maybe that phase, like you said, is like 20-10, which is still pretty good. I mean, it's just not quite what we got. We got a little spoiled, I think, by the peak of those Harden years.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about Tyrese Maxi for a second. I was very high on him coming into last season. I drafted him on almost all my fantasy teams.
Smart decision on your part.
He came in 6th in the most improved player voting. When I watch him play, I feel like he might be the quickest guy in the league. How high is his ceiling? And yeah,
Steve, you mentioned him coming in 6th on that most improved player. I mean, Ja Morant won it, as we all know, which is a little weird for people to think of. Maybe he should have been in the MVP conversation, but they've shrunken that list so much that it's only really 3 guys that can even be in the fray there. But when you look at the other people on that list, there's no reason to think he can't, outside of Ja, be as good or better than the guys on the list. I mean, Darius Garland made an all-star team last year. So if you're asking me, can Tyrese Maxey make an all-star team, at some point, the answer would definitely be yes. Desmond Bane, I would say his ceiling is just as high as Jordan Poole. And given the opportunities and all that he's gone through to get to this point, and I don't mean all that he's gone through in the sense that he's overcome these great obstacles, but Doc Rivers, man, is notorious for not liking to play young players. So he has gotten the mental, emotional, drubbing that you would imagine that guys who are younger in the league might go through. And he's come out the other side of that as looking like a special player. And you mentioned the speed, and he has this incredible demeanor that has everyone rooting for him because he still has some of this innocence and calls, media members Mr. and Mrs. and things like that, and which you just don't see from players anymore. You know what I'm saying? So it just, I think he's super dynamic, and he can really cook when he starts to get hot. And he's an off the ball player. He looks like he's a point guard, but he is not a point guard. He can play the point if need be, but he is really a great off the ball is where he thrives, and that helps. Suddenly, him and Harden as a backcourt are looking like maybe one of the top, 8 backcourts in the league, 6 backcourts in the league.
Yeah, that's what was so impressive about Maxey last year, because I think a lot of us, in the fantasy industry and I think in the NBA are like, oh, well, Harden's arriving in Philly. That's it for Maxey, right? Like, there goes his production. There goes his breakout year. But he thrived.
He's plus. Right?
Yeah, he thrived. So that was really impressive. And by the way, to that point you raised about Doc Rivers, I can empathize as a Hawks fan because Nate McMillan's the same way. It's the most frustrating thing as a fan of a team when the coach will not play a guy just because he's young. It's like, just evaluate the player.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's like you kind of like these coaches who have been around the block a bit, but they're kind of set in their ways like your dad or your granddad or, people like that. And no disrespect. It's just like sometimes you need an Ime Udoka who can think the game differently or maybe, motivate players differently or things like that. But
yeah. No doubt. All right. Well, we've already mentioned Joel Embiid a little bit. He played a career-high 68 games last season. Obviously, was fighting through some injuries in the playoffs. Danny, is there a sense that Embiid can approach 70 games played again? I mean, what's the outlook on this guy coming off really what was his best season in terms of volume?
He was really upset that he didn't win the MVP because he was close to not making the cut because of the amount of games he played. So that was definitely a factor in the amount of games that he played. And I think that will be a factor moving forward as long as he wants to pursue the MVP.
Right.
And he'll take, the team accolades over the individual accolades any day of the week. But he has repeatedly said MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, are things that are goals of his NBA career. So I intend to see him pursue that for as long as he possibly can. And obviously Nikola Jokic, being on the opposite side of that makes it difficult for him to win it. Right. But, he looked as healthy as he has last season. And considering all the injuries and things like that, and even I had to take a step back because, as a big man and a guy his size, he hits the floor so much. And you're like, man, what is up with that? But that's actually something the doctors have told him to lessen the impact on his knees, ankles, and feet to fall down. Because instead of having to brace himself when he comes down and things like that, if he falls, it spreads the impact over the rest of his body instead of just those, sore or, areas that have traditionally been, sore spots for big people. So I would definitely expect to see him play that many games. And look, and that's one of the issues with this team, the 76ers, is they're not as good as the Heat, the Celtics, the Warriors, those teams, because they just weren't playing that level of basketball last season, partly because with Embiid not in the lineup, they're just not the same team. They can't, hold the line when he's not there. But one of the most important things was them to improve the group around this nucleus they have of Maxey, Harden, and Embiid in order so that if Embiid does miss a game, they can play and perform and be, like the Grizzlies without Ja Morant, so to speak. So I think it just gives them an opportunity to, even if he's not in the lineup, if he's approaching that 70 games played, whatever it is, they need to be better as a unit and not just be Embiid heavy, so to speak.
Danny, who plays more games this year, Harden or Embiid?
That's a great question. I would say Harden, because the options behind Harden at point guard are kind of like the options behind Embiid at center. It's just a quick drop off, and it just messes up the rotations and the schemes and the flow. So I would say Harden.
Well, that's a good segue into backup point guards because DeAnthony Melton is now a Sixer. How much do you know about Melton? I know that we have a in-house resident Melton freak in Jonas Nader. He loves DeAnthony Melton. He's a per minutes fantasy monster, but he's never really been given a huge role. I don't know that he's going to get a huge role in Philly either. But what are you looking for him?
Well, it just serves a gigantic need, Steve, of the Phillies. The Sixers need more players who can play both ways. You know what I'm saying? So they need guys who can score on offense and play good defense. And they thought Matisse Thybulle would come along in that regard, but he's been slow to be a better three-point shooter, a more reliable three-point shooter, a better scorer, a guy who can go to the basket, maybe off the dribble or any of those things. So DeAnthony Melton obviously comes from great stock with the Grizzlies and what they were able to do, like I mentioned, without Ja Morant, and continue to grow and develop. And I think that a guy like him checks so many boxes for this team. He can play multiple positions. He's hard-nosed. He has a reputation. You don't have to worry about him being a younger player that Doc Rivers won't play. And Daryl Morey drafted him with the Houston Rockets, a few years back. So it just gives more of that rapport. And, hopefully he comes in here with something to prove. And it also ratchets it up, which is something I'm really big on, the competition, because you need to compete for these positions, the time. You need to have somebody sometimes looking over their shoulder, expecting someone else to take opportunities for them. So I think he checks all those boxes. And I think it will be, with the team that's coming back, maybe, lesser on Matisse Thybulle and what he can bring to the table. He started a lot of games for them.
Yeah.
I feel like there's opportunity there for someone else to step in and maybe who can be more prolific at that three position.
Well, and so you kind of led us to the next area we want to talk about, but I want to keep this a little bit with Melton as we think about Thybulle too. It almost feels like Thybulle being a little bit of a letdown, especially in terms of scoring, could open things up for Melton, who had, as Steve kind of said, had this weird kind of artificial cap on his playing time in Memphis. we're not asking the moon here, Danny. We're not asking for 35 minutes a game for Melton. Can we
Right.
do you think he could get like 25 minutes a game with the Sixers? Because with that, he can be a really productive player.
25 minutes, I think, is optimistic.
Okay.
Because Doc Rivers, is sometimes can be hit or miss.
Yeah.
He can fall in love with players. He says one thing, but then does something different. So give him credit, though. He made some adjustments in the playoffs, particularly, setting up that play for that Embiid game winner against the Raptors. That was all Doc Rivers' design. So give him credit for that. But I think 25 minutes is optimistic, but for people out there playing fantasy, looking to see how he can, maybe step up or have more of a bigger role, this is an opportunity for him to do that, because I think it'll be a merit-based evaluation for the 76ers. So if he comes into camp in shape, playing well, being dynamic and versatile, they're not going to, be loyal to Matisse or loyal to someone else who's currently on the roster, because the roster, frankly, wasn't that deep. They didn't have, reliable two-way players. They had players they wanted to be reliable, like Matisse or Furkan Korkmaz or Shake Milton, but that just didn't quite come to fruition or fit with James Harden like you would want. So I have big expectations for DeAnthony Melton, and I feel like he could be a player that fits really well with the 76ers. So I would definitely have that green check mark next to his name.
Nice.
Tobias Harris seemed to be kind of a polarizing figure in Philly last year. I'm friends with some Philly fans, and they were like, he misses layups all the time. He's not rebounding the way he's supposed to. He's getting paid all that money. We got to get him out of here. Then he played better in the playoffs, I thought. And Harris spent 23% of his time at small forward last year.
Yeah.
PJ Tucker's coming in. What do you see happening there? Like, is Tobias Harris's role completely safe? I mean, somebody's going to lose minutes. Is it Thibault? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, I think he showed a lot of versatility with, you mentioned the playoffs, and stepping up a bit and, doing more in the postseason, because that's what you want from everybody, right? The numbers should go up a bit. They should be more efficient, score better, rebound more, assist numbers should be up, etc. And I think that definitely gave Sixers fans, more love for Tobias. But for the money that he's making, he's not a guy that's going to give you 30. You know what I'm saying? He's not a guy that's going to, Harden and Embiid are out. We need somebody to step up. Here's Tobias Harris, pouring it in for you. So I think, unfortunately, the money and his performance are kind of tied together for Sixers fans. I think, the rational Sixers fans are accepting of what he is. And on this team, he's a fourth option. Maxey is the guy who's, really coming along and showing that he, can cook and pour it in for the team in moments when he gets hot and has a matchup that is favorable to him. His ceiling really has continued to rise. Tobias is what he is, and he's steady as she goes. He's efficient. He's a guy who almost hit 50, 40, 90 a couple seasons ago. So he's not a slouch at any instance, but the frustration, and I think that, Sixers fans kind of get this tunnel vision and kind of get caught in this vacuum sometimes and are just like, oh, he's not as good as we want him to be. But, guys like Al Horford leave, and all of a sudden they still have gas in the tank. And I think they would definitely feel that if Tobias left, he might be appreciated more. And I think outside of Sixers fandom, he is appreciated more around the league for what he can do. And he's the type of guy who you want to marry your daughter, but still has like issues on the basketball court that need to be ironed out. And you mentioned the missed layups, things like that. It's just more of the efficiency. So, 2 seasons ago, he was almost 50, 40, 90. Last season, he didn't come close. So maybe, this next season, upcoming season, might be where he recaptures some of that form.
By the way, as fourth options go around the league, there probably aren't that many better ones, man. I mean, that's a good fourth option.
But in Sixers fandom, it's like, well, why isn't he scoring more? How come he's not? He makes so much money, and it's like, okay, well, it's just the going rate. It's just the money is the money. It's not yours.
Right. Put the money out of your mind. You're not paying the check. But Do you think that Tobias's stock in Philly has gone up just incrementally based on his performance and hustle? Did that help at all? Did him meeting both careers on the playground, did that help?
No. I definitely feel like he earned some stripes in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying, Matt? Like he definitely showed that he wasn't a punk, so to speak, because a lot of the playoffs is about attitude. It's about, stepping the game, being able to rise to the occasion and capture the moment type of thing. And I think that he showed some toughness, maybe not as much as Philly fans would like, but that's like, the Sixers go out and get PJ Tucker. Joel Embiid named PJ Tucker. He said his name, like, we need more guys like PJ Tucker after they get eliminated in the second round. You almost obligated to go out and pursue this guy if you're in the Sixers front office after your best player mentions him by name after you get eliminated from the postseason. So how the two will fit, I think, is really Doc Rivers' issue. I'm not quite sure how that will work out because obviously Tobias benefits, you mentioned 23% of the time at the three, but he benefits from being a smaller four and quicker than other fours around the league, and that's where his advantages come in. But one place he really ratcheted it up in the playoffs was his defense, man. He was guarding Pascal Siakam. He was switching out on, smaller guards, and he just looked really good defensively. His feet looked great. So you got to give him credit for how he ended the season, regardless of how the rest of the season went. But if he can carry that into next season, I think he can be more versatile and play more minutes at the three.
Okay. Do you see any sleepers on the Philly roster that some of us may not be thinking about in the middle of July?
Yeah.
As particularly at shooting guard, it just looks like it's James Harden and a bunch of guys. Isaiah Joe seems like he's got some upside. Furkan Korkmaz has been around for a while. So any of these guys?
Forget about Korkmaz. Because you're going to be frustrated messing around with him.
Yeah.
They signed this G League guy. You talk about sleepers, and you mentioned shooting guard. Another guy I will put on this list would be Paul Reed, but he's like more of a backup 5'4" guy. But he's one of those high motor, do anything that's required of him. He got into a bit of the doghouse last year because on a fast break he tried to do like a Dominique Wilkins like reverse dunk and missed. So that landed him on the bench for a bit. But Paul Reed, he has looked really good in the summer league, and just like you would want a guy to look like better than the other competition around there for a guy who's been in the NBA a couple seasons. So I would say Paul Reed is a guy. But they signed this guy from the G League, Trevelyan Queen, and he was, I think, G League MVP, Finals MVP. They won the finals. I think he was on All Defense for the G League. And he's a G League guy, but we've seen, Robert Covington come from that G League scrap heap, so to speak, and then, rise to be really viable NBA player, making all defensive teams and things like that. So, and you mentioned, Harden and the guys behind him. And once again, just like DeAnthony Melton, there's opportunity here. There are minutes here that guys can win if they come into camp right and are impressing the coaches. There's opportunity here for some of these guys. So he's a guy that I would mention that definitely isn't on a bunch of people's radar, but could have opportunity here. And maybe he won't be like a 25-minute guy like Melton. Maybe he'll play his way into that. But as of right now, he could come in and take minutes and have opportunity at those interchangeable, 2-3 spots.
Denny, one more quick one before we say bye. If Embiid does miss time, it's not really an if, right? And not to say he's going to miss a lot of time, but let's say misses 8 to 10 games, whatever it ends up being. Who do you think is the backup? Is there a plug-and-play guy who steps in this season?
Well, they had Andre Drummond last season for about half the year, and he was an excellent signing. You got a guy on a prove-it type of deal, a rebounding monster. So they don't have that. And outside of signing DeMarcus Cousins or something like that, they're going to be saddled with the guys in-house, which is Paul Reed and another guy, Charles Bassey. Embiid missed 11 games last year because of COVID. So those are like consecutive, missed games. And the Sixers, and some of that goes under the radar for Doc Rivers of keeping the team together and continuing on the winning path that they were on last season. He deserves some credit for that. But Paul Reed and Charles Bassey, as it looks now, seem like the guys that would be the backup for Joel Embiid. But to get, alone, they're not enough. But together, they are enough. They can cover, some of that defensive prowess that you would miss with Embiid. Rim protection would be more of the Charles Bassey angle, where Paul Reed would be more like maybe a smaller ball five, but he has, like I said, a great motor. He can rebound. He's going to, pick up some fouls, but hopefully the refs will see that differently because he's more of a veteran now, but he will pick up some fouls. But I think Bassey and Reed can combine to fill that gap if need be.
All right. Danny, this was awesome. You can follow him on Twitter at Pommels, NBCS. Hear him on the Sixers Talk podcast. We really appreciate you stopping by and bringing all this insight. It was great, man.
Steve, Matt, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah, thanks, man.
See you, Danny. Have a good one. All right, we have some more Summer League developments, some off-season news coming up in just a second. First, we're going to take a very quick break. Just a reminder, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app powered by PointsBet, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands by predicting what will happen in Major League Baseball, on the PGA Tour, and NASCAR circuit. We also have a special contest on Tuesdays and Thursdays called Battle of the Bets, where you can agree or disagree with our experts for a shot to win some cash. Steve, I thought that was great. No surprise, but some really notable insights from Danny. Anything that stood out to you more than anything else?
Well, it's funny because I didn't know if we were going to rehash this or not. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, man, I've really got to do a better job of just asking a question and getting out. And so, don't throw an "and" on the end of it. Don't just keep talking to hear myself talk. So that was my big
That's
takeaway.
Your big takeaway.
That's my big takeaway. No, Danny was awesome, and it was fun talking about Embiid and Simmons and Harden.
Yeah.
And that's a fun job covering the 76ers full time, because, like he said, man, it's different today than it used to be. There used to be an off season, and now there's really not. There's just constant drama going on in the NBA, really 365 a year. So pretty cool stuff. My takeaways, I would say, I have a few that really stand out to me. Number one, I came away encouraged about Embiid's outlook. Not that we don't know that he can avoid injuries, right? But we know that games played, as Danny pointed out, are a big priority for him if you believe the MVP snub narrative. And so, therefore, we think Embiid wants to play as many games as possible. That's good news. James Harden, I think I come away encouraged and just accepting what we're going to get. Let's just lower our expectations slightly, right? Expect 20, and I think you can expect 20 and 10 from Harden. And as Danny said, you might get a little more than that 20, but that's not such a bad thing to draft for your fantasy squad. And number three, I was a little more encouraged by Melton's outlook than I thought I was going to be. I think DeAnthony Melton, inconsistency is probably going to be an issue, but it sounds like he could have his moments and potentially a more consistent role with this team. I don't know. He's just a guy who's I'm not going to stop watching closely just because he's now on the Sixers, Steve. Well, and if you look at the depth chart in Philly, like it's pretty thin in that backcourt. Like Tyrese Maxi and James Harden, but after that, like Danny said, those names drop pretty hard, pretty fast. And Melton's going to be a big piece of that. Also, yeah, he's young, but he's not too young for Doc Rivers anymore. Like, what's he entering? Like year 4, probably? Yeah, I want to say Melton is like 25, 26. Yeah, I mean, that's 20... he's got 24. Enough. Okay, he's a young dude. He came into the league really young. He's 24. He's got enough years, though, that Doc Rivers should not have a problem with playing him. Right. So, yeah, I felt the same way. I thought that the James Harden running the steps after games and stuff, trying to get healthy, was like that's stuff you don't see or hear about, and it's cool. And like we talked about, man, Harden and Embiid are two fantasy guys where if they play, you're going to win, and if they don't, you're not going to win. Yeah. By the way, Ryan Knaus wanted me to put it on your radar that Tobias Harris has a birthday coming up on Friday. I don't know if you're going to be here on Friday, but if you are, bring the... Oh, wait.
Steve's got a hat. Do you? Yeah. Okay, we got it at the ready. We'll be ready.
Got it.
We'll be ready.
I've also got the party pipes.
The party pipes. Great. We'll be ready for that, Steve, next time, a little later this week. All right. A couple of Summer League storylines and then some off-season injury reports before we go. On Sunday, we had a James Wiseman sighting. He had 11 points, 2 rebounds, a triple, 2 blocks in 20 minutes. First game, I believe, in over a calendar year. And Steve, just based on the glimpses I've seen, looked pretty impressive. Any thoughts here?
He looked good. Wiseman looked good. What I was more blown away by in the highlight package that I watched is it was Kuminga throwing him these lob passes and for these dunks. And I mean, Kuminga is still my guy. But it was good to see Wiseman out there. He knocked down a couple 3-pointers. He hit a jumper, had a couple big dunks. Looked like you said, he did look pretty good. I'm not jumping up and down, getting excited about drafting James Wiseman in my fantasy league this year, but at least he's playing and at least he looked good. So there's that.
There's that. And I mean, the role obviously is a big question mark. How do those minutes get divided up between him and Kevon Looney? I mean, if it ends up being something close to a straight platoon, I'm intrigued enough by Wiseman's per minute potential to like him in a 24-minute role, whatever it ends up being. Then again, though, based on the name and the upside and the intrigue and the unknown, I think he might actually get drafted earlier than I want to take him. So that would be my question.
Like I'm fine with like after the middle rounds.
Yeah.
And I need a second center. Oh, Wiseman's sitting there in the 8th round. Give it to me.
Yeah.
But I'm worried like you are. If he plays all summer and has a good camp, he's probably going to be taken higher than that.
So. Right. No doubt. One other Summer League storyline. We don't have to spend long on this one. There were some photos circulating over the weekend of some Atlanta Hawks out in Las Vegas for Summer League. And one of those guys taking a lot of photos, looking very happy with the rest of the team, was one John Collins, Steve. This is the guy who John Collins, power forward for the Atlanta Hawks. Obviously, we spent most of this offseason hearing how John Collins is going to get dealt. John Collins is gone. He's done in Atlanta. Any deal the Hawks make is going to include Collins over and over and over to the point where we were sure it was a done deal. Now, as we said on Friday, with each passing day, it's starting to look more and more like John Collins is back with Atlanta. I think these strategically placed photos of Collins, palling it up with his teammates are a sign that the Hawks, I think, are trying to welcome John Collins back to the fray. And I'm very happy about it for one, Steve. Probably not best for his fantasy outlook, to be honest with you, but real life outlook, I'm a pleased basketball fan.
Well, I mean, the Hawks are a better team with John Collins and DeJounte Murray than they are without John Collins. So, I mean, I think it's – and you know what? He's still young enough.
He is.
That we have not seen the end of this. Like, he could easily be a 2010 guy.
It's in there. We've seen it before, on a worse team.
Yeah. The problem is DeJounte and Trey are going to be dominating that ball so much. But when defense collapse on them, Collins should be wide open. So
yeah, I mean the floor last
kind of exciting.
The floor last year, we saw what it is for Collins. It's like 16-8 with like a block. So he, in theory, he can do a little better than that, especially potentially with another playmaker on the roster. I don't know, 17-8, 18-8. That's within the range of outcomes for Collins. So
yeah, it is.
A couple injury updates. Billy Donovan spoke on ESPN2 recently. We have a blurb about this, about Lonzo Ball's recovery from his knee surgery, and said that Lonzo seems to be improving. Billy Donovan said on this ESPN2 broadcast, we're hopeful that will happen faster, but at the same point, he is making progress and he is getting better. So you have, we wish it would go faster, but he is making progress. It seems like a kind of a combo of frustration, Steve, and some optimism from Donovan when it comes to Lonzo Ball. Do you make anything of this?
I mean, what else is Donovan going to say? I mean, his comments are like, he looks like he's getting better every day.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like 0.02% better every day.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still feel like he may not be ready for the start of the season. And also, feel like this is not going as well as they had hoped it would go. Mm-hmm. So, which makes me sad because I think you and I have an equal amount of love for Lonzo Ball.
Agreed. It's weird how long this thing has taken, but I mean, I don't know. We saw James Wiseman. Didn't James Wiseman miss an entire year with a meniscus? That's an injury that we should not be. That was a meniscus, right, for Wiseman? I didn't make that up, did I?
I don't think you made it up.
I just feel like that's an injury that we hear meniscus. Oh, it's not so bad, but I think we need to put it within our range of outcomes that, yes, it can be quite bad. But maybe that's the way people were thinking already. One more, Steve. Michael Porter Jr. said recently on NBA TV that he thinks he is 100% in his recovery. So, Steve, after we were burned very badly in fantasy leagues last year by MPJ, extremely badly in some cases, some of us, including me, will you go back? Will you give him a fresh bill of fantasy drafting? What am I saying? Will you draft him
every time
with optimistic eyes this year?
Every time we do this, I just have this flashback to Andy, my friend from Manchester Orchestra that we had on the show a couple years ago.
Name drop.
He texted me and he's like, bro, do you seriously trust Michael Porter Jr.? I'm getting ready to pick, like with my next pick, should I take him? I was like, bro, go all in. Like there's nothing, what could go wrong?
I'm wearing the jersey right now. It's fine.
And what did he play last year? Nine games.
Was it even that, man?
So I just feel like I really let Andy down. I really let myself down. And I read that report. MPJ says he's a hundo. He's ready to roll. I'm back in, baby. I'm all in. Oh, I'm all in. I'm going to wear my jersey to my drafts, and I'm going to draft Michael Porter Jr. every time.
Okay. I'm still trying to figure out where I am.
It's going to have to be a second round pick, though. Second or third.
You think second? I was thinking maybe he's going to fall to the third after.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe third, but I'm still going to chase the dream.
All right. I might be ranking him slightly below that and therefore not getting him, but we'll see. A long way to go to the season. I'm approaching this one cautiously, but it's possible that I'll be all in a couple months from now.
Well, and let's see if his back still feels 100% a couple months from now. Anything can happen.
Let's do that. And one other blurb that just got published, I should say, while we were doing this podcast, while we were talking to Danny Pommels. This is
breaking news.
I don't know that we'd run the breaking news banner /sound. I don't know that it quite falls to breaking news. This is just according to Brian Windhorst. The Pacers are serious about signing DeAndre Ayton to a max offer sheet or working out a sign and trade for him.
Matt, what does that do to all your favorite Pacer big men?
Jalen Smith's a power forward, Steve. Rick Carlisle already said that for me, so I'm good there. I think Miles Turner, if it's a sign and trade, could he be involved? Like, could Miles Turner go to Phoenix in a sign and trade deal? I don't know. I haven't dialed in those particulars yet, but just thought I should run that one by you. Thought we should, because we had heard that's not the first time we're hearing a Pacers DeAndre Ayton connection.
It's not. This is one where it sounds like they are very serious, and they're like this. That had to be a big move for the Pacers because they don't do things like this.
Yeah,
they don't go get big time free agents. Yeah. And it's also interesting that they're so disinfatuated. Is that a word?
It is now, and I love it. I couldn't be happier about it.
Disinfatuated with Miles Turner that they are now targeting another, what some perceive to be an underperforming big man.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I like Ayton though, and I like Turner though too.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I can lose here, man. I'm good with whatever happens.
I feel like none of us can lose because you just gave us the word disinfatuated, which I truly hope that sometimes things happen on this podcast and we remember them and we kind of file it away and it becomes a running thing. I just hope that becomes one of them because I'm very pleased about that.
Well, I mean, yeah, it probably won't be as easy to remember as something like the Chetty pill.
That's true.
That's true. You just have to suck down, but
yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting news for the Pacers, I think, especially as bad as they want to get rid of Miles Turner. I think the fan base is done with Miles Turner. So, and I don't know that the Suns would match a full sheet on him, would they?
I don't know. It's crazy how long this thing is dragging on, though, isn't it?
It is a little crazy.
All right. On that note, that is going to do it for us. Don't forget to subscribe to. Oh, yeah, go ahead. I'm not signing off.
While we're here, Kyrie Irving, according to Brian Windhorst, also, the market remains frozen.
Yeah.
And only the Lakers, the only team in the entire league showing any interest whatsoever.
Crazy.
Dude, what is happening? What is going on?
What is happening? I don't know.
Crazy world we live in.
Yeah, it is super weird that we've, all of this free agency stuff happen, and then we're just still waiting for a few big pieces.
Okay, feel free to close your show.
Okay, we're closing it out. That's going to do it for us. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you listen. Take a minute to rate and review us as well. We will be back on Wednesday and Friday this week as we continue with the latest from the offseason and Summer League, and, of course, celebrating Tobias Harris's birthday.
I do think I will be here Friday. I think I'm on Friday.
I hope so. I'm going
to bring a cake. I'm going to go to Dairy Queen, get an ice cream cake because that's my jam.
Please do.
Throw some candles in there. We'll figure out how old Tobias Harris is. That's anyone's guess.
Trivia on Friday. So we have that to look forward to. I want to say thanks to everyone for listening and watching live with us today. And a big thanks again to Danny Pommels for coming by to talk Sixers. That was awesome. Steve, thanks to you. Talk to you soon.
See you later.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for all the latest fantasy and sports betting advice from NBC Sports Edge. And don't forget to sign up for NBC Sports Edge Plus to get the best-in-class draft guides, as well as season-long fantasy, DFS, and sports betting tools that will give you the edge.